Greetings, humans! I haven't had much time lately to work on new projects, so today's video is actually going to be a brief look at some projects that I've made in the past, just kind of telling you what I did to make them and hopefully giving you some inspiration for projects of your own. Specifically, I'm going to talk about weapons that I've made. Let's start with the smaller weapons. I have here a dagger that I made when I was cosplaying Vin from Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn trilogy. Now, the knives that she uses are described as being made of glass. So this is not actually glass. What it is actually is a clear plastic ruler. So I got this 12-inch ruler at the dollar store, I think, and I just filed and sanded down the edges, cutting it to the profile. If you look, you can see that this is actually full tang. The ruler goes all the way down through the center of the handle. And once I'd sanded it down, it gave it this lovely translucent look where you can still see through it and it looks like glass, but it's not too shiny or too clear to show up well on photos. The hilt here I actually made out of popsicle sticks that were already contoured to this shape. I just cut the ends off them, sandwiched them together in stacks. I think I used 3 on each side, and just sanded them all down smooth and stained them. This is just some puff paint that I used to hint at mist, which is significant in the story. And if you look here, you can see that I actually pegged this into place. It is held in place with glue as well, but I used proper knife making techniques and used a small wooden dowel here and at the very end where you can't see it hidden underneath the glass in the pommel to actually peg this hilt into place. Now for a second smaller weapon here, I have my lightsaber hilt that I made a couple years back. And this was actually super simple. This is just a PVC pipe in the center, which I think I found in somebody's garbage while I was walking my dog. And then this at the tip is a piece of an old broken lawn umbrella. The rings around here and the cap on the end are pieces of bottle caps. This obviously is just a cap. And then these are those little rings just underneath the lid. I just spray painted those all silver and glued them in place. Finally, these small pieces of actual metal here at the top and the bottom are pieces of barrettes. These are the spring pieces inside that enable it to snap open and closed, and these are just some pieces of the structure. This right here is the only thing that I would really change. This was supposed to be a clip to hold it onto my belt, and it really just kind of bent and didn't work at all. So I'm going to replace that at some point, but for now, I'm very happy with this, and it was super easy to make. So if you need a lightsaber hilt of your own, oh, there's the activation button on this side, and you don't want to pay, $200 for a nice fancy one, it's very easy to make a custom one using scraps like this. Moving on to those larger swords that I showed you at the beginning, this one here is Nightblood, another one that I made for a cosplay based on Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere books. Now this is entirely wood, sword and sheath. And it's actually made from a piece of crown molding that I found in a junk heap and filed down to shape. The only thing on here that's not wood are these ribbons tied around the hilt. Now you can see this hilt does have an extremely narrow profile. I didn't actually add any structural parts to the sheath. This is essentially just the tang of the sword. So if I were to do this again, or if I were ever to adjust this piece, I would probably add some more to the hilt because it does feel, it's not flimsy, but it does feel a little bit narrow in the grip compared to the length and weight of the sword. On that note, I actually am not sure how long this sword is, so let me measure it real quick. And the verdict is 2 feet 11 inches. Now, when I made this sword, I actually had access to a jigsaw and a belt sander, so I was able to very quickly and easily shape these hilt pieces and the pommel piece here. As you can see, these are 2 opposite shapes, mirror image of each other, and then joined together at the end with a smaller piece of wood to create that little negative space in the middle. This part here is actually similar. It has a negative space between the 2 halves of the crossguard. See if I can get it to an angle where you can actually see that. There you go. And then it has these little bars, which are just dowels of wood across the centerpiece. Now let's pull it out of the sheath, which is something that is very problematic in the book. It's a little stiff on the draw. If I were to make this again, I would be sure to leave a little bit more space in the sheath for the blade. And as you can see, it's just matte black, sanded to shape, and spray painted glossy black. The sheath is also completely made of wood. You can see just a little bit the joints there. So this was 2 pieces of plywood cut to shape, and then I took some smaller pieces of wood and sandwiched them in between. At the end here is a little bit of a rush job, so I didn't get that curvature in there. I just used some straight pieces. And then I guess this is another piece that's not wood. I did do a little bit of wire wrapping on this just to add a little bit of texture and interest. Finally, we've got this monstrosity, which I don't need to measure to tell you it is exactly 6 feet long because it's made out of 2 yardsticks. So this is another cosplay piece that I made when I was cosplaying Jasna Colin, again from Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere books. Now, if you look closely, you can see that this part, the hilt, is not actually yardstick. This is just a random stick that I found outside and sanded down. The blade, however, is all yardstick. Just 2 wooden yardsticks, which, if you look closely, you can see I joined together with this cut right here, which I pegged and wood glued in place. And then at the end, I just filed and sanded it to a point. The crossguard is made entirely out of popsicle sticks. If you look closely, you can see where the rounded ends stick out a little bit and where the layers are here. So I just glued those into place with wood glue. And finally, the details, the lumpy shapes here, these little spikes, the knobs on the end of the crossguard and the pommel are all made out of air-dry clay, which I just smooshed into place. And once that was done, I covered the entire thing with these designs made out of hot glue, because in the story this sword can appear and disappear out of mist, and I wanted it to look like it was in the process of materializing. So I covered the whole thing with these random hot glue shapes and then just spray painted the whole thing silver. So all in all, this was a very simple build, and up close it's a little bit rough, and you can see that some of these shapes aren't completely smoothed down. Honestly, this was a rush job. I only had a few days to do it, and it shows when you look at it up close, but from a distance it reads really well, and I'm very happy with it. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about my process and hopefully got a little bit of inspiration or tips for your own projects. If you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe, and all that. Until next time, fare thee well.